Hello, Grant and Janice. I wanted to make this video for you because the two of you know more of my story than most people. You've prayed for me. You've prayed for Tara. You've prayed for Naomi and Christian. You've encouraged me when I wasn't sure where God was taking me. And Grant, you've also seen my professional side through Sticky Change and the Able models. So before I introduce Kingdom Focus on Tuesday, I want you to understand why this feels like more than another business opportunity to me. I think God has been connecting things in my life for years. I just couldn't see the thread. One of those threads goes all the way back to Proper Pipe that I mentioned to you when we first met. You prayed with me for Ruben during our lunch break, and that experience has stayed with me and has impacted me in so many ways. Thank you. Thank you for doing that day with me. As you know, years ago, I joined this little Icelandic startup because I believed the technology could change how water and other resources were transported. I helped establish the company in the United States. We entered accelerator programs. We won regional and national recognition. Eventually, I was invited to Saudi Arabia to present the technology as one of top 50 global innovations that year. After that presentation, I was taken into a private room and presented with an offer, $21 million for 49% of the company. I called Ruben and gave him the big news. He said no. And that was basically the end of the conversation. At that point, I had worked for a little less than 2 years without compensation. My 401k was gone. I had child support, I needed food, I had to leave, and I carried a lot of anger from that experience. For years, I thought Proper Pipe was just one of the great failures of my life. Today, I see things very differently. After leaving, I was driving Uber and living in my mother's basement, divorced, struggling financially, trying to figure out what happened to my life. And during one of the lowest periods of my life, I went back to the church where I grew up and joined a mission trip to the Dominican Republic. That trip changed me. I had grown up as the son of missionaries, but somewhere along the way, career had taken center stage. That trip started bringing something back. And not long after that chapter of my life, I met Tara. I didn't have money to impress her with. That was probably helpful. What she wanted was a husband who would put God at the center. And somehow God gave me this extraordinary woman who also happened to be a mechanical engineer with a lifelong passion for something very specific, clean water. At the time, I still didn't see the connection. Then came Fight Club. The first year, we were given a rough block of wood and worked on one side each week. One exercise required us to draw a cross and hammer 3 nails into the wood. I remember holding that block while driving those nails in. Every strike created an image in my mind of Jesus being held down and nailed to the cross. Except this time, my hand was holding the hammer. It took me a long time to finish. I cried through much of it. God was doing something in me that I didn't understand yet. Then, in the fall of 2022, I joined Fight Club again. Christian was going through one of the darkest periods of his life. As his father, I felt helpless, ashamed, responsible. One night, around a huge bonfire, the leader said that someone might be carrying something too heavy to carry alone. I finally raised my hand. I told them about Christian. I asked them to pray for him, Monica, Tara, our family, and for me. About 60 men surrounded me. Hands were on my head, my shoulders, my back, and on other men who were touching me. And I prayed expecting God to tell me something about Christian. Instead, I heard a question, twice. What have you done with what I have given you and where I have put you? And then I saw something. It wasn't a still picture. It was like a little movie unfolding in pieces. I saw a pipe joint sinking into an open grave. Over it, rest in peace, dead, finished. Then I saw the body of God, prayer, the cross, and water and resources flowing downward. They went beneath that grave, and somehow they lifted that pipe back upward. As the technology rose, it began benefiting people around the world. Then part of that benefit flowed back into the body of God, creating more resources, which created more service, which created more impact. A circular ecosystem. I fell to my knees. I could feel the heat from the fire on my face. The ground was wet beneath my jeans, and I drew that vision on my Fight Club block that same night. For a long time afterward, I questioned it. Was that God? Was that just me wanting something so badly that my mind created it? I still don't claim to understand everything I saw, but I knew I couldn't simply ignore it. That eventually led me back toward Proper Pipe and Ruben. And this part mattered because I had carried anger for years. There had been broken trust, financial pain, disappointment, and experiences that made me want nothing more to do with him. But I started realizing something. If the technology could someday help people, then it didn't belong to my anger, and it didn't ultimately belong to Ruben. It belonged to God. So I created Proper Seal and tried to find a way to work around the past. I proposed a simple arrangement. If I brought opportunities, the company could benefit and I could earn a commission. I tried to reopen the door without reopening the old wounds. Ruben ultimately would not participate, and this time something was different. I didn't have to force it. I could say, God, I tried. You closed the door, I'll keep walking. That lesson has become increasingly important to me because another message I've sensed repeatedly is take your time. Years later, God started bothering me about something completely different. Write a book, write a book, write a book, which made very little sense. I'm an immigrant. English isn't my first language. I've spent my career building systems, not writing books. Then several people who had profoundly influenced my life died within a very short period of time. My Aunt Gerarda, former leaders and mentors, and Pa Otis Russell, my youth pastor. He was the tipping point. People had poured decades of wisdom into me. And suddenly I understood something. If I died without passing that knowledge forward, it disappeared again. So I wrote Sticky Change, and the experiences from GE, Schneider Electric, Eli Lilly, government, consulting, failures, projects, people, all started becoming the ABLE model. And then you read it. Grant, you have studied Cotter, Proshi, Six Sigma, Agile, and other methodologies. You told me something that really stayed with me. You said ABLE seemed to sit above them because it addressed something many systems overlook, the human factor. And in another conversation, when I explained that ABLE helps leadership teams prioritize things without finger pointing or making decisions personal, you immediately responded exactly what I derived from your book. No finger pointing, only uplifting. That mattered to me because maybe what I had spent my career thinking was about systems was actually always about people. Then, mission-driven organizations became interested in ABLE, but ABLE was too technical. So Deborah challenged me, simplify it. Make it useful to churches, missionaries, nonprofits, volunteers, people who will never study Six Sigma or earn a project management certification. So instead of only rewriting the book, I built the Mission Impact Navigator. And suddenly, the same skills I had used for GE, Schneider Electric, Eli Lilly, and major organizations were being redirected toward people serving God's kingdom. Then Deborah introduced me to missionary technology leaders. That led to the International Conference on Computing and Mission, ICCM, conference earlier this year. That led to conversations about helping mission leaders around the world, including Latin America, again, another piece. Meanwhile, Tara and I kept talking about water, her passion, my proper pipe experience, the Dominican Republic, El Salvador, remote communities, and unexpectedly, God opened another door. A major patent law firm agreed to take our proper pipe Reuben situation into its pro bono program and help us determine whether there is a lawful path forward for a new technology. So we created Solid Melt, very slowly, very carefully, and this time I'm trying to do it differently, with counsel, with accountability, without forcing doors, because I remember, take your time. Plus, if it took 23 years for God to answer Pastor Wayne's request about the land next to church, I can't stop till I see his calling in me to completion either. And that brings me to Kingdom Focus. I didn't go looking for it. A SCORE mentor heard what I was trying to build through SGA Praxis and introduced me to them. Kingdom Focus brings Christian business leaders together to address real business problems while intentionally bringing biblical principles into the conversation. And when I heard what they were doing, something clicked. For decades, I've helped business leaders solve difficult problems. GE Schneider Electric, government, Eli Lilly, and others. Maybe now it's time to use those same experiences intentionally with Christian business leaders, not simply asking, how do we increase revenue, but how do we steward the company God has entrusted to us? How do we treat people? How do we make decisions? How do we lead when faith actually matters Monday through Friday? How do we use businesses as resources for God's kingdom? And how can Christian business leaders help solve problems much bigger than any single business? This is what I want you and Janice to see. Proper pipes seemed dead. Then Fight Club gave me that amazing vision about technology, water, prayer, resources, and the body of God. Then God told me to write. The book became Sticky Change. The book became the ABLE model. The ABLE model became the Mission Impact Navigator that connected me with missionary leaders. The Water Vision unexpectedly received pro bono legal help. And while trying to figure out how to support my family and continue following all of this, a business mentor introduced me to Kingdom Focus. I couldn't have designed that sequence. And I certainly don't know how it ends. That's exactly why I want you there Tuesday. You have business experience, you have missions experience, you know scripture, you've read my book, and you've prayed for my family. I need somebody who isn't sitting in the driver's seat with me, because I am excited. And excitement can make you see what you want to see. I don't want my enthusiasm to become louder than God's wisdom. So ask the uncomfortable questions. Tell me where something doesn't line up. Point out the risks I don't see. And pray about this with me. I don't need people telling me that every idea is wonderful. I need people who love God enough and care about me enough to tell me when I'm heading in the wrong direction. I don't know if Kingdom Focus is the destination. Actually, I don't think it is. I think it may be the next step, a place where faith, business, leadership, coaching, relationships, missions, and service can finally stop living in separate boxes. Maybe Kingdom Focus helps me build relationships with Christian business leaders. Maybe some of those leaders eventually help missionaries. Maybe some help with clean water. Maybe some will benefit from the ABLE model. Maybe some become mentors. Maybe God has entirely different plans that I can't see yet. That's okay. I don't need the whole map anymore. I just need enough light for the next step. Years ago, around that Fight Club fire, I heard, "What have you done with what I have given you and where I have put you?" I think I'm finally beginning to understand the question. Maybe my career wasn't simply a career. Maybe Proper Pipe wasn't simply a failure. Maybe the Dominican Republic wasn't simply a mission trip. Maybe Tara's passion for water isn't a coincidence. Maybe Sticky Change isn't just a book. Maybe the ABLE model isn't simply a framework. And maybe Kingdom Focus isn't simply another job. Maybe these are resources God has placed in different parts of my life, and my responsibility is simply to steward them, to connect them when He opens the door, to release them when He closes it, and to remember it's not about me. Grant and Janice, thank you for praying for me. Thank you for praying for my family. And thank you for helping me discern what God may be doing next. I'm ready to step into the Jordan. I just want to make sure I'm following Him when I do. And you have been, and I hope you continue to be a part of my journey. May God continue His blessings upon you and yours.